We got Jennifer Nakayama in the room. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you.
Really? Thanks everybody for joining in this morning. We got our regular viewers, Chris, my Goombas from Chicago are in town. Diana Boyd. I don't have a computer today. We're winging. I'm going to use the chats on the screen here as best I can. Let me make sure they're advancing. Here they are. Um, oh my gosh! So you guys, did you guys go through the Arctic blast in this last couple of weeks? With all the, I heard my sister in Dallas went crazy cold.
Yeah, I touched down in Oklahoma a little bits, but definitely in perspective, not like the northern states experience, and even some of the southern states even got hit harder than us, New Mexico
Ah,
and parts of Arizona, but
ah,
definitely in the panhandle of Oklahoma, we saw a lot, and yeah, we saw ice and snow and things like that.
wow, we had heavy rains last Monday.
I heard
We got a month.
floods.
We got a month of rain in a day, which is unreal for San. It's not even heard of in San Diego. The
Hmm.
entire Mission Valley, which is normally flooded during rains here in San Diego, because we're not, this, we're not designed for rain in San Diego.
Right.
And and then we have our number of idiots who, I can drive through that, and of course none of them can, and they go float away. But
Yeah.
the entire town of Southcrest and Orlando flooded up past our doorways, which is very New Orleans looking. The whole
Yeah.
neighborhood's lost their homes.
I
A
saw
car,
photos of that. Yeah,
yeah,
how many standing feet of water there was.
yeah,
That's
Choice Lake area, which I think you're familiar with. That
mhm,
whole
mhm,
that drainage ditch that they
yeah.
had not kept up for decades and decades,
Oh,
over the
that's
top,
too
and it
bad.
just
Yeah,
flooded the whole. Oh man, hundreds of homes were damaged beyond repair.
yeah.
So,
That's
which is
when deferred maintenance is definitely becomes more apparent than ever.
And that, you know what? That's a great segue because that's part of the things you've done in your career. You guys are going to love our guest today, Jennifer Nakayama, currently the president and CEO of the Downtown Oklahoma City Partnership. I always
Yes,
flip the two.
I know. That's okay. It's a mouthful.
Yeah. Jennifer's professional career is beyond impressive. She is such a go-getter. I mean, we've done a lot of research. I got 2 pages of notes that I got from her, and we have a connection. And we'll get to that in a second. But Jennifer's one of my favorite people in the world. We have a friendship. We have a professional career together, and we have now we're soon to be visitors at home here as soon as we can. So
Yeah,
welcome to
lifelong
the
friend.
yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bubba.
So as we always start off, we always like that. It says you grew up in Brawley, and Brawley, if you guys don't know Southern California, it's kind of the Imperial County, correct?
Right.
Yeah, it's east. It's considered San Diego County, but it's way
It's
east.
It's Imperial County, which is even farther east than San Diego County, and
Yeah,
then close to the Mexican border is how I describe it geographically, and then that
yeah.
kind of frames it for people because folks don't necessarily always think about San Diego being so close to the Mexican border, even though it is. But Brawley and El Centro, I was actually
Right,
born.
it's right next to it.
I know. I was born in El Centro. I don't know if I put this in my notes, Bubba.
Oh,
So we lived in Brawley, but at the time there was no hospital in Brawley. This is how
oh my gosh.
small desert town it was. And so, yeah, my parents had to go to El Centro, which was kind of the next town over, and that was where the hospital was. So technically, I was born in El Centro, although we lived in Brawley.
Now you mentioned your notes. Does it make sense? Like Brawley is a high deserty town, um, and
Yep.
a kind of a farming community. And your folks, well, your mom. Talk about your mom. What was your mom's name?
My mom is Martha, and
Martha.
her maiden name is Yamano. So they had Yamano
Hmm.
Brothers Farms. That was actually in Corona, California.
Yeah.
So my mom grew up in Corona. My dad grew up in Riverside, and then they met in junior college, and then they went for jobs down into Brawley and El Centro. So that's where I was born.
And
Yep.
she was an accomplished math teacher.
Yeah, so my mom was a lifelong, for her career, a high school math teacher. Taught everything from algebra up to advanced AP calculus throughout her career, and yeah, just loved being part of the high school atmosphere. And then my dad was a biochemist researcher. So
Yeah.
in Brawley. He started with a company that was doing a private company that was doing research, and then he moved over to the University of California at Riverside and was working with the students there, both undergraduate and graduate students, working with them and the laboratories there in biochemistry and things like that. So I had dad in science and mom in math. So it kind of
And they
fused
both
together.
in background because you skimmed over, but chicken
Oh
farming, onion farming,
yeah.
vegetables. I
Yes. So
mean,
before,
and
I mean,
supplying local grocery stores.
it sounds really technical that my mom is in math, my dad is in science, but at our roots, both families were farmers of some type. So my dad's family was chicken farmers in Riverside, and tons of stories about chickens running around with their heads cut off and things like that. And so they're plucking and all kinds of fun stuff. Well, because my dad came from a family of four boys. And so imagine you couple four boys and chicken farming, and, chaos kind of ensues. But then my
Wow.
mom's family were vegetable farmers, and mainly green onions was their market. And so my grandfather and his brothers developed the whole farming piece in Corona and expanded it even more so investment wise to include a distribution packing warehouse. So not just their goods would
Yeah.
go out through here, but they invested wisely, larger than themselves. And then they were earning income from others that would come into the packing plant and get distributed out. So yeah, they were
Wow.
very entrepreneurial. And then
No,
both of them,
yeah, good.
actually, both my mom and my dad's side, and I don't think I put this in the notes. Both of them had a dabbling in restaurants. So both of them did a Japanese restaurant at the
Wow.
time. Yeah, for a brief stint, but this was back in the time that it wasn't all that popular to go to Japanese food. Kind of scary, probably for most of the United States folks. So it didn't last too long for either of them. But both of them, both my mom's side and my dad's side, tried restauranting for a while.
I remember when I met you, when I first met you, um, God, years ago, well, over a decade ago, right? Maybe
Yeah,
closer to 2 decades ago. I
I think, yeah,
remember,
we're nearing on that.
I
Yep.
remember, I remember when you introduced yourself to us as a team, and your parents made it a focus that you're going to speak English and you're going to
Yeah.
blend yourself into this country,
Right.
which is kind of a big statement to make, right?
Right. I mean, this is coming off of the heels of World War II, of course, and the
Internment
internment
camps
camps.
and yeah.
My grandparents' generation were either interned here in the United States, or
Wow.
one of them, my grandmother, was actually over in Japan when the bomb dropped in Hiroshima. So definitely firsthand, feelings and
Wow.
experiences from the war, and I think that really, not that I think, I know that really carved out, their outlook on the United States and things. But still, they were here and they loved it. It was their home to come
Yeah.
back to. And so when my parents were both growing up, they did speak or even write and understand some semblance of the Japanese language. But
Yeah.
because of when they started going to school, it was definitely washed, if you will, out of them, because it was very
Yeah.
encouraged, of course, to stick to English, and discouraged for Japanese or for any other language, which is
Yeah.
kind of mind-boggling when you think about it today. Like today, if there is an individual, a child that is multi languages, that's a big plus, and you would encourage that and you would foster that.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
yeah, back then, though, it was very, very much discouraged.
It's funny because as generations go, and you take, let's say you had that information then, and you
Mm,
blend it with this oversaturated instant information generation now. I
yeah,
mean, the Hiroshima thing and all these other internment camps, is that because everything's fine tooth comb now. You know it in 5 minutes if something happens. If a small
right.
conflict in another country happens, I mean, it's.
Mhm.
I mean, isn't it amazing how times
Yeah,
change and
that's
thought processes
the
change and
reach of news, whatever your definition classification is of news
yeah,
is. Yeah, it's instantaneous now, whether you want it or not.
yeah,
Yeah, it is amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then you said your sister, who's 9 years your junior,
Mhm. I
Yeah.
have one
What is
sister,
what's her name?
Karina, and she is presently a professor at a
Professor.
university. Yes, she's a professor. She went
Ah,
all the way for the PhD. I did not have the gumption to do that, and kudos to her for that. And she does research for a university in Oregon, Portland,
you know what?
Oregon.
You don't undersell yourself, Jennifer. We have so much to cover in your professional career. You're don't. I don't have this gumption thing. Is not part of your mantra. I promise you that. You know, you're one.
Thank
You know,
goodness.
because when I met you, and this is for disclosure, folks. She's just not the president CEO of the Oklahoma City area. She was my former boss, and back at SeaWorld, she became the manager in a role that I am in now,
Mm,
spanning my entire 39 plus year career.
mhm.
She made one of the biggest impacts in my life professionally because she
Oh,
made, I was, and I told you that when you left,
yeah,
how important you were to me as my friend, my dear friend, who one of my favorite people in the world. But
of course.
professionally, I'm a goofball, fun guy in a young leadership role, right? And here's this young upstart, you know, 5 foot nothing,
5 foot, yeah,
in,
4'11".
but
Yeah,
it. I was
you're
I
giving
was
me
over,
more credit. You put all
but
the ink
in
on me.
but instantly wrapped her professional thought process around my professional career and made me think big picture like that. So I was trying to, as a leader person, you want to be friends with everybody. You want to make sure that they like you as a leader, but you got to blend in the tough conversations and the disciplinary conversations and you land somebody off conversation and the
Mhm.
all the kudos. And she made me think big picture. And here I am now. I'm retiring from the role that she helped mold me into um, in 4 months. So I don't know if I told you enough, but you made a huge impact on my life in the professional standpoint. And then such a dear friend of mine now that I consider one of my favorite people in the whole world. So
Thank you,
that's our
Barbara.
connect. That's our connection now, and we talk all the time. And I'm very good friends with her husband Brian and her son Sebastian, who we call Bashi, and we'll get into those folks in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but her professional career, you have so many accomplishments, and I've always told you you're such a go getter, and you wanted to get to the next level,
Thanks.
next level. Yeah. So let's go over. You started out
Mhm.
in your school days. Not only were you accomplished in your professional life, dance studio performer, jazz,
Mm.
tap, ballet, lyrical hip hop, which is awesome. I'd never seen you do that. Um,
There's contraband video somewhere. Yeah.
you won the district and regional science fair with your projects. What was that? What was that?
Well, because my dad in particular had a
Ah,
heavy science background, it was really encouraged to do these science fair projects, and back in that time period, it was not a required part of the curriculum, so it was almost voluntary, and it was a great interest for me to be able to bond with my dad,
yeah,
and him to
yeah.
have the expertise behind there to teach me the scientific method and to really make a really great science fair project. This is beyond just making a volcano, the traditional volcano that spurts out stuff, or coloring a carnation or something like that. I mean, these were really deep rooted in science
Wow.
type of projects, and I really enjoyed it. And so at the time I was very young for my age, and so I advanced through there for multiple years. I got awards at the school level and moved into regional, and then I also got to state level, which was just, yeah, phenomenal, and a phenomenal experience, and really nerve-wracking because they send judges around and they actually interview us as kids, and you have to explain about your project. So it taught me a lot of those impromptu type of presentation
Yeah,
skills. So you really have to know what it is that you're talking about, and probably in a very good way. It's so that it proves that the parents aren't doing the project,
that's
and
my
because
question. So
you're standing there with your mom and dad.
a lot of the projects, as we know as parents, you're influencing. How much did your dad,
Yeah.
with his background, influence your project?
Yeah, we would sit and definitely carve what the idea was, what the hypothesis was going to be, what the problem is that we were trying to solve. And then he would lead me and guide me along the way. But ultimately, I would do the data collection, I would
All
do
right.
the methodology and set it up and draw the conclusions. And because otherwise, I wouldn't be able to speak to it. And it would be really evident that,
Yeah.
oh, okay, my dad did it, instead of me. And I think that's why I really went so far in
Yeah.
all of those levels, is because it really proved that I knew what it was that I actually did the experiment on. So
Yeah. So move on
I mean,
that.
kudos to my dad.
Valedictorian middle school and high
Mm,
school.
yeah, and so back to my parents, both my mom and my dad, of course, were very, very studious themselves, and then wanted
Yeah.
that for me, being their eldest child. And so I was really encouraged to do well in school and to do the extra credit whenever there was some, and things like that. But I became valedictorian of both my junior high and high school class. And then it was also my mom's inclination. She wanted to make sure that I was well rounded. My mom and dad both, of course. So it wasn't
Yeah.
just about science fairs and being valedictorian. So that's when I went out for the song leading squad, which
Yeah.
is like cheerleading. So I followed in my mom's footsteps, who also had a mascot and cheerleading in her background in high
So
school.
fun.
And so having that fun side as well. And so I was ASB secretary, so I was very
Yeah.
involved in school wide type of things. And I joined the choir, which I know you have an affinity for, with singing and music, Mr.
I
Bubba.
sing every day. Yeah, I sing every day. People don't know. I
And so
have, I'm trying to do a secret thing with Michelle, and you don't know Michelle, but Michelle's a professional singer, and she's also a slot machine player too. So, but
oh,
she's got a
lovely.
gig. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I sing to
So,
Ellen every day, and
oh,
Ellen, I do.
well,
I sing to Ellen every day,
that's a
and
beautiful message.
that's my audience. So
Mhm.
I'm a very much a ballad R&B kind of guy, and I sing to
I
Ellen
know.
every part. Everywhere
I
we
remember
go, she
that.
turns the radio. She turns the radio down so I can turn myself up. So it's we're romantics.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody joining the chat today. Like I said, I don't have a computer today, so I'm only going by the three chats that show up on the screen. Renee is in the house. Chris Thompson, Sylvia P, my student from the Keno Nation Academy. We're not even done with your schooling yet. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Um, Undergraduates in science, environmental engineering, which is where our connection kind of makes like Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in the
Right.
lower LA area. Yeah. And then your
Yeah.
graduate degree in Masters of Science in Civil Engineering. She's a civil engineer, guys.
Yep.
Brainiac, you know, and then some. Fun to be around. Just
Thanks.
and a licensed professional engineer.
Right. So I got my degrees in environmental and civil engineering. And for those of you who may not know, they're very tied closely together. Civil, actually, in a lot of places, environmental engineering is an offshoot of civil engineering. Civil
Yeah.
engineering is kind of the bigger umbrella that most people are aware of, that build bridges and, design buildings and things like that. Environmental engineers are ones that focus on water quality or wastewater quality, looking at treatment, or hi
Hey,
She's on her way.
Ellen.
It's her Sunday coffee group this morning. So
I'm gonna go.
And so it was really a blend again of my mom and dad, the math and
yeah.
science. And it's like, well, let's try for engineering. And so I did that, and I stayed on that path, and was really happy to do it through my undergrad. And then I sat at the end of undergrad, and I couldn't find a job that I really thought that I would like, especially because I was trying to stay in San Luis Obispo area, which is in the Central Coast region of California.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, yeah, the geography of California, big state, and so it's
Yeah.
kind of like Santa Barbara. A lot more people are familiar with Santa Barbara, so it's about an hour and a half north of Santa Barbara, and it would be wonderful if I could find a job, but I couldn't. So then what did I do? I decided, well, let's go back to school, or let's continue school. So
Yeah.
I applied to grad school and got my master's in civil engineering. Went to UC Davis for that, so still stayed in California. And yeah, it was really in hindsight, it was a great thing to do. I had a lot of friends, especially at the time, that said, "Oh yeah, I'll go back to school, or, later in life. Let me just start my career, start my job now." But it almost never happens because life just
Yeah,
happens, and it's so
absolutely.
hard, as you know, Bubba. I mean, the thought of going back to school and studying and taking tests, and it is accolades to anybody on this program who can do that. I honestly, I knew my own willpower was not going to be there once I started real life. So I said, if I'm going to
Real
stay,
life.
if I'm going to stay in, that then yeah, I need to do it now if I want more schooling. So that's what I did, and UC Davis offered me not just to go to school, but they offered to fund me as long as I would be a research assistant and a teaching assistant for the university.
Mm,
So that's exactly what I did. So I taught at the University of California, Davis, and that was a wild, great thing for me because
mm,
there was an inkling in me, because of my mom's background in teaching, that was an avenue I wanted to go professionally, and it was a great little like toe dip in the water to try it, and I absolutely loved it. It was
mm.
so great. Um, but there were downsides of it too, and there's, as in every job. But it was a unique experience to be able to see what it was like, almost literally be in those shoes.
Yeah,
But knowing that it was a temporary thing, so I could try it out and see if it was for me long term, and or not. And so then then I decided that after graduate school, after my master's, I actually was asked to stay on to get a PhD, and I go, okay, my brain cells are just too dead. I'm like, no, this is like, yeah, because by that time it was 7 years. Yeah, because my bachelor's actually took me 5 years to get,
yeah,
not the traditional 4 years. So 5 years plus another 2 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, after all of this school, I'm just like, no. And
yeah.
I was so no in my brain cells that not only did I not continue on for my PhD, but I didn't even want to be an engineer anymore. I was like, let's just do something else in life. So I went kind of engineer adjacent, I like to say, and I got a job. I got a job in San Diego, as a matter of fact, but it was not as an engineer. It was
Right.
working in the building with engineers,
Yeah,
but it was not as an engineer itself, because I just felt like I needed my own brain space from that.
yeah.
It was just, call it a wellness perspective or what have you. I think it was just a life check for myself that I needed to take a slightly different avenue for a period of time. Yeah.
Now, is that when you're with the water? Here's our you work for the San Diego County Water Authority,
Hmm.
and
Right.
then
That's what I did.
yeah. So I've worked with them in that organization, California Water Authority, Water Environmental Services, up and down the state of California, and then there's a
Mhm.
national conference that I've given tours to and VIPs at
Yep.
SeaWorld of San Diego. And then they wanted another tour this coming year, and I say, I'm sorry to say, but I'm retiring and I won't be able to do your December event.
Uh huh.
So the head of the California Water Authority reached out to me 2 weeks ago. They're having their awards banquet this coming Saturday, February
Yeah.
3rd, and they're presenting me with a state award for all the work with all the work I've done with the California Water Authority. Now
That's
I've
so good.
it's amazing. So I've been to Sacramento. I did inspections on
Mhm.
the uh, the waterways up there because
Mhm.
there's a huge controversy. The land and the farm owners don't want the expansion of the waterways because
Mhm.
they have to shut down portions of their farmland to get the construction because it's a massive
Yeah.
project, right? And
Yeah.
then the water guys go, if you don't do this, there's going to be a saltwater invasion of your entire crops in 1 second because
And
the
it'll
levees
get
up there,
decimated anyways. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
levels will collapse and you're going to lose all your land. So
Right.
I've been there when the levees were first built back in the day, when the farming days in the 20s and 1920s, the land and the levees were the same level. Well, it's
Mm-hmm.
been mulched and levied and mulched and leveled and mulched and leveled and
Hmm.
mulched and leveled. The
Hmm.
levees sit 30 feet above the farmland now,
Yeah.
and it's an amazing to see. So there's a dam up there, and I can't remember the name of it. During the last heavy rains up in Northern California, I went to an inspection 2 or 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
The entire valley, including the dam, was underwater because of the way the
Mm,
ground is all channeled, and it just overwhelmed the entire upper north region of the Sacramento Basin. And it was a sight to see that the visitor center we were standing in was 10 feet underwater.
I
It
know
was
it's
over
surreal, right? Yeah.
surreal. Mother Nature will always let you know who's in charge,
Yeah,
and and
whenever
it,
in doubt.
and it ain't us, right?
Yeah, yeah. We try to force humans try to force our hand in many
Yeah,
ways. But yeah, well, congratulations. That's
yeah,
so
it's pretty
great for
cool.
your not just your longevity with them, but that they're recognizing you. That's I'm really proud of you. And I know that
Oh,
we did
thank you.
some tours together and things when we
Yeah,
were at SeaWorld
absolutely.
and things. And but that's the part that I absolutely loved is sharing information with others. Yeah.
Yeah, you put me on microphone. Remember, we started doing the video based training series
Hmm.
and for onboarding employees. So there's a video that I did that's utilized by the entire local um, zoological association for their onboarding training for basic water treatment. And so the zoo uses it, the animal park uses it, and then we have it as our onboarding too. I've also done video based training where it's me on the microphone, and you were there for the first one as my
Hmm.
director
Yes.
and training and how to operate all of our facilities. So those videos are still used today. We end up doing like seven of them, and I'm the actor in six of them. And I made Vince. You're very familiar with Vince. He did
Right.
one of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, and our
Yeah.
staff. I mean, since you left, I think there's only like two people, two or three people left that you would know. My team's completely turned
Mhm.
over because of that's the way things are nowadays. But you got to
Yeah.
SeaWorld, and you got to SeaWorld in the design and engineering department first.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I was toying with going back to engineering, it had been a couple years, and then I decided. Well, actually, a tip from a coworker was that there was an opening for an engineer at SeaWorld in San
Yeah.
Diego, and it was like. Oh wow, this is I never really deeply thought that in theme park lands there would be such an opportunity, but it makes total sense. And that's what I explain to everybody, especially when I give talks to other engineers and students and things. It's that there's so much of everything out there. Don't cut yourself off to
Yeah.
thinking, oh, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to just sit at a desk, or I'm going to sit at a drafting table all day long.
Yeah.
So a theme park works as a mini city with utilities in
Absolutely.
department in that sense, a customer service type of department, a
Yeah.
culinary department, all of those aspects that people don't really think what literally happens behind the scenes. So
No.
when I was shown that opportunity, I'm like, yes, let me try for it. And so I got the position in design and engineering there. That was my first foot in the door. So I worked on capital projects. So this was everything from the smallest maybe equipment type of
Hmm.
purchase of a mega laser printer or something like that for entertainment department, up to actual rehab or refurbishments of existing
Yeah.
places. So like I did the one of the employee cafeterias when I was there. Redid all of that, and then did a back of house exhibit that at that time used to be sea lions, and then they converted it to warm weather penguins, Humboldt penguins.
Yeah.
I did that project. I did things for the entertainment department, like we built an actual barge to go in the former Cirque du Soleil, the Mission Bay
Yeah.
stadium, and to
Yep.
to add some elements of trapeze and things like that. So lots of different, really fun slants on what engineering was going to be.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was less glamorous, like let's renovate a bathroom. Super John.
Bathroom. Yeah.
But,
Because
you know.
you know this, but the common guest, I'm not saying they're common, I'm saying the guest comes in and they
Mhm.
expect their day to be uninfringed, right? They expect their day to be textbook, I'm going to go to this show,
As
this
they
and that.
should. Really,
But
they're paying the
absolutely,
money.
they're
Yes.
paying big money. But on the design and the water quality side and all the other things, like you said, we're a mini city. There's a motor pool, electric shop,
Mhm.
metal shop, painters, landscapers,
Mhm.
water treatment, park prep, park cleaners that work all night long, water quality, blah blah, including ticket takers, merchandise, all these other things, foods. And when you design things, how are we going to do this so it least impacts the guest? Because we're going to be open every day. how are we going to dig this trench for this? How are we going to build this building without cutting into the guest environment? Because they're more important than anything. Other
Yep.
animals are first. The guests are right below that. So because they're the
Right.
lifeblood of the entire thing. So
Well,
as an
yeah.
engineer, all those things are thought about every day. How are we going to do this? Okay, it's going to have to happen at midnight because we're closed at 10 o'clock at night. We're going to work from midnight to 7 in the morning. Get the heck out of the way. Put the fences
Hmm.
back up. It happens every day. And I'm
Right.
still involved
How
in
do
all
you
that stuff.
how do you do that in minimizing the impact to the guest
Yeah,
or
yeah,
to the public? And how do you do that in a seamless way that they never even knew that you were there?
right.
In that sense, that's the magic of it all. And I see
Yeah,
in the chat, yes, bathrooms are important, especially from a guest perspective. So
yes,
I don't need to
yes,
demean it in that way.
yes,
It's just it's not as glamorous, let's put it, as
absolutely.
a penguin project and a bathroom project.
Oh, Vegas 77 with a $5 super chat. Hey, Kino Nation, Jim, Ellen, and Jennifer. Hello, one of our biggest supporters. Thank you,
So,
V77. Love you guys. There
no.
also somebody said, Jennifer, Chris Thompson said in the chat earlier, says, Jennifer, you can tell how passionate you are about what you're doing. So it
Oh,
is. And
great.
that's a true statement. Jennifer's, yes. So she comes to design engineer, and then she comes to water quality
Yes.
in the manager role.
Yes.
And was it more, how long were you with us? 5 years?
It's from about 2006 to 2011. So five,
Yeah,
6 years,
five.
something
So
like that.
was
Mhm.
this is not a critique. Was it more of a resume enhancer to go because
Mhm.
you were always building the
Yeah.
career to get to this because your travels from Obispo to Design Engineer Water Authority to
Mhm.
SeaWorld to the next two stops
Yeah.
are you know
Yeah.
talk,
Let's say it wasn't necessarily intentional to go into water quality when I took the job at design and
yeah,
engineering, but because at the time we were actually the same department, if you recall. So actually, the
we worked for this D&E, yes,
right, yeah. So D&E was the overarching, and the VP was Pat Owen, great
yeah,
mentor to
great
myself.
guy.
I owe a lot to Pat. He's yes, and it was more so that in design and engineering there was I could definitely stay there, but then there was a transition in leadership happening in water quality because retirement and whatnot.
Yeah,
And so then I was asked if I would be interested in transitioning over to that because knowing they leadership at SeaWorld knew my background and
yeah,
in that ironic way, it kept on pulling me back more and more. As I said earlier, I was almost trying to stay out of engineering and it just kept on pulling me more and more back in. So not only being the civil engineer, but being an environmental engineer that had the specialty in water and wastewater treatment and quality controls and
which
things.
is what
So
we
then
do.
it was just like let's transition you, for the good of the company too. As long as I was willing, and the manager at the time was willing to take me on too. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
the director at the time was willing to take me on. That it just seemed like it was going to work overall for the company for the better. So, and I'm glad I
you know,
did because that's how I
it,
got closer to know you professionally.
yes, exactly. So because I've given this tour 1,000 times, right? So, and people have asked me, can you do a live stream with what I do for a living because it's it's diverse to what you normally think.
Oh yeah.
Um, our parks, and I'll just do the little $3 tour quick. There's a Florida park, SeaWorld. There's a San Antonio park, Texas, and then there's San Diego. Those two parks are saltwater, man-made saltwater parks because
Mhm.
their nearest water source is more than miles away. Like people think of Orlando, that oh my God, they're 60 miles from the nearest saltwater source. So is it easier to
Mhm.
dig a trench 60 miles long to draw water? No, you man-made saltwater. Our park in San Diego is the regulatory intake and the over-regulatory discharge. EPA, Mission Bay Planning Committee, I mean, the Water Authority, all these things. So there's
Mhm.
NIPI's permitting, and there's so many permits to bring water on board. And then the unknown is Mission Bay in San Diego. If you're not familiar with San Diego area, Mission Bay is a man-made bay that has city runoff from rain events that go into the bay. Also, Fiesta Island in the middle of Mission Bay is where they have the over the line tournaments. It's a softball related, but prior to that, it was a manure compost plant.
Mhm.
So when we have heavy rains, there's still some leaching from the previous product that was made on that island that gets into Mission Bay. So when we have heavy rain events, we've had red tide events where we shut the park down because we're always bringing water in 24 hours a day. We bring in about 2.5 million gallons of water each and every day, and then we discharge back to Mission Bay. So it goes through the park, goes through all the disinfection methods, feeding animals, peeing and pooing and all this stuff, and then kids throwing up in the sun. All these things that you have to fact, a
Yep.
kid decides to take his pants and a pee right there on the sidewalk. Does it happen?
Yep.
Absolutely, because that water goes back into Mission Bay. So then we have to super disinfect, then de-disinfect, and then discharge as just salt water. So that's the lifeblood of the entire park. Is it's very permit condition. Jennifer
Mhm.
knows what Shreddy knows what I'm saying. If you don't follow your permit conditions, you can't open the front door. So
Yeah.
in my role in water quality and the role that I have my team is that's our main focus every day. And then life support, it's just as important. But if we don't follow our permit conditions for that, we don't get to do the science stuff. We don't get to do the chemistry because we're
Right.
failing our permit. And then the city comes in, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And we have agencies that come on site whenever they want to. Can you pull your records for
Impromptu
September
inspection.
3rd,
Mhm.
yeah, they don't even need to ask permission. They just come on and say, "Give me your records for whatever day," and you have to. And everything's done in triplicate. We have a manual operated manual sample. We have a digital sample, and then we have a there's a chart, and that's charted 24 hours a day, every second of the day. And we say, "Here you go." But we over the years we have our naysayers, right? So we take millions of water samples every year
Mhm.
and year after year after year. And then let's say we had a chemical pump break one day and we discharged for about 5 minutes of chemicals. See, SeaWorld's polluting the bay. And I go, well, you didn't say anything about the other 10 million samples that we took that were right on the number. So everybody has their pros and cons. Ours are
Yeah.
the unknown emission bay. It's unknown because every dead animal or fecal matter or some guy dumping oil off his boat or some guy poured a beer next to the pier, all these other things that we're bringing into the bay
Mhm.
from the bay. So it's a big challenge, a big job. I've been doing it for almost 40 years and I'm
Yeah,
4 months
great job
away.
at that. You're phenomenal, Bubba. You said about me, but you sell yourself short for sure. I mean, it is giant chemistry, as you're saying, and that's what I try to explain to others
Mm,
that are not aware too of just what all goes into the
yeah,
particular park in San Diego. Like you're saying, to take a natural water source rather than it being in a very controlled
yes,
environment, being able to man make or human make the salt water under
thanks,
controlled
Chris.
situations. So it's very different, and it's just a giant water and wastewater treatment plant. Is
Yeah,
the
and
the park? Yeah.
saltwater is a living, breathing animal, for lack of a
Mhm.
better term.
Mhm.
It's constantly evolving and corroding and eating away equipment. And I mean, because saltwater is so corrosive, it's basically, I could go. You've
Yes,
heard me. I could go on for hours and never say the same thing twice because it's so
I know.
complex. So
You and me both.
mhm,
Yeah,
exactly.
whole separate
So
podcast.
then, this is where you get an opportunity
Mm.
in
Oh,
another state. It's not in another state, but in paradise. Jennifer takes a job in Hawaii.
yes. Yes. So, even though loving SeaWorld and loving my family at SeaWorld, my husband and we were actually visiting, going from San Diego up to Northern California one driving holiday season. And also back then, I don't remember there being like satellite radio or podcasts or
Mm,
anything to listen
yeah,
to. So you may know that there's a lot of barren area driving up along the five. So nothing was coming in. So what do we have to do? We have to talk to each other. Oh my gosh. And
heaven
so
forbid.
I know. So lots of topics of conversation come up. Amongst them, just what do we want to do perhaps next in life? Call it a pseudo midlife crisis, what have you. But we didn't have kids, and we just were thinking about what ties us to San Diego versus what would be our next goals in life. And so we talked about just kind of winging it, like, oh well, what about Hawaii? Because if you're moving from San Diego, as probably a lot of your listeners would attest to, like people have said, why the heck would you even consider leaving San Diego? It is a glorious place, definitely to be and to live. And we're
I
like, well,
just
what?
to prove your point, Ellen and I took sushi up to Mount Soledad, overlooking La
Oh,
Jolla Shores on an
uh,
85-degree day. The golf tournament's going on just to the north. It's just, and I posted like a 45
picturesque.
second short. I
Yeah.
posted a 45-second short on my channel. It's just, and then Vin Julian, one of our loyal viewers, goes, you know what? It's pretty freaking cool to live in San Diego.
It
It's
is.
just, it's
It
pretty
really, really is.
90% of the time.
Yeah, it really, really is. And so we said, okay, jokingly, like, what about Hawaii? And I had vacationed there in my college years, and so I knew some of it from a tourist perspective. And my
Yeah,
husband had never ever been there before, so it was a big leap of faith for him to consider it. And so it was it was just on a whim. We are like, okay, well, let's start looking at jobs for me. And 2 months later, I had a job offer to work as the director of operations at the convention center. The state of Hawaii
yeah,
runs a convention center, and it was incredible to think about the opportunity, not just being in Hawaii, but for my career, because it expanded what I was doing at SeaWorld in terms of guest service and
yes,
the engineering aspects, working with culinary and things like that, to working overseeing all of those entities at the convention center. So, overseeing engineering and maintenance and sustainability and green projects, housekeeping, janitorial, IT,
yeah,
landscaping. And security. It was everything with that had to do with operations of the building. And then plus I got exposure to event management and international and domestic events because of where Hawaii is located,
yes,
uh,
yes.
in
It's
the
a hub.
middle, literally,
It's a
of the
hub.
ocean.
Yeah,
It becomes that international piece. So we would have a lot of events that would host from Asia or would host from Australia, or so there was a real mix blend. Interestingly, so that
yeah,
came to the convention center there, that gave me a lot of exposure to hospitality industry and tourism that I really liked. And what I realized that drove me more than the job or the job title or the location itself was something that started in me at SeaWorld, and why I progressed into the convention center and event management is that it's so special to me to be a part of people's lives, however long or short that is. And sometimes it is just a snippet. Like at SeaWorld, this could be their one visit, their one day that they spend in San Diego. They choose to come to SeaWorld, and
yeah,
whatever they see at SeaWorld is going to be their lasting memory or their kids' lasting memory forever, whether in photographs or just in our mind. Being a part of people's lives in that sense is so powerful when you take a big step back and think
yeah,
about it. And yeah, you're always going to have the, the downsides and the not happy people. But that's what I thought SeaWorld really taught me, was to embrace that aspect of everything that we did there could be the most lasting memory to somebody
yes,
throughout their life. And
yeah,
so when I took that in my heart, I took that with me to Hawaii at the convention center, because very similarly, people spend their whole lives saving a ton of money to go on vacation in Hawaii or to go to a convention or a meeting in Hawaii, and that might be their likely their one and only time.
yeah,
If they are fortunate enough, and so to make that experience the best possible is was always really my goal, and I just liked being a part of that element of people's lives. So it was really, it seems when you look at my resume, yeah, it looks weird and what I've done, where I come from and where I've gone to, but
I wouldn't,
that's the
I
threat.
wouldn't say weird because we're not even done with your career. I wouldn't say weird. I would say it's so accomplished because you've taken every facet of whatever thing you're going and you've tested the waters on all of them. How many of us can say that you've done? Well, I can tangent this into that, into this and this and this and that. And now here you are running major cities. You're the face of the city and tourism, maintenance, people. You're doing it all. So I do want to bring up. I actually went and visited Jennifer in Hawaii when she was in Hawaii with her family. Um, Aztecs play basketball. Every time they're there, we've gone to Hawaii and we've seen Jennifer there too. And when we met her for lunch one day, if you've never been to Hawaii and you're walking down Waikiki Beach, it's just it's Hawaii is a lot like Waikiki is a lot like San Diego. The traffic's bad, but it is it's bad traffic. You wouldn't think it. Traffic is horrible in Hawaii because it's one way in and it's one main road.
Mhm.
But when
A
you're
lot of
walking down
people
that
don't think
beach,
about that. Yeah.
it's San Diego with better beaches because they have the flea markets, they have all the little mom and pop shops, ABC
Mhm.
stores every 10 feet on the sidewalk. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I want to. There's two things that happened to you when you're in Hawaii that you discovered. One was thrown on you. One was you learned was your staff has always seemed to be on island time instead of promptness. Is that one of the challenges?
That's the proverbial joke. Yeah. So island time. That I mean, it's hard not to think of that in some ways because all the tourists that are the
Yeah,
majority of the traffic there in Waikiki in particular are always going to be on their own island time because they're on vacation. And why not?
yeah,
If you don't have
yeah,
a unless they have a luau or a bus to catch at a very specific time, they don't need to necessarily be on a certain timetable. But from a business perspective, of course, Hawaii runs. We have clocks just like anybody else, and so there is definitely a. I think when you work in Hawaii, you have to have that, especially in the hospitality or tourism industry, you have to have that in the back of your mind that most of those that you work with in terms of tourists and things like that are not necessarily going to be
yeah,
rigid according to a clock. But of course, business speaking, the GMs, a general manager of a hotel or a restaurant, they're just as timetabled as anybody else would be anywhere else in the
yeah.
country.
Yeah. Now the second thing, which was it was beyond traumatic, you're there and COVID hits,
Hmm.
and Hawaii completely shuts you guys because you're isolated. It completely shut down the entire state.
Yes, it did. The tourism industry, if it wasn't already evident before, it was very apparent that without the tourism industry, things very much stopped. Not just flights in or hotel stays in that way, but in a very much larger sense. It was about the delivery drivers because
Hmm.
all of a sudden there was not a need to take like the fresh produce to a restaurant because the restaurant was closed or had amended hours or
Yeah.
lost staff or what have you. And so it was a very almost that 6 degrees of separation type of thing. It wasn't just about frontline hospitality that you would normally think of in Hawaii that came to a slowdown. It was everything island wide that really fed into that industry. So it was a big step back for the states to really say, and the city of Honolulu to really say, what does this mean for the future of
Yeah.
Hawaii? That doesn't mean
I
to
remember.
veer away
Yeah.
from the tourism industry because Hawaii is special for a reason. It is a destination in
Yeah.
itself, and that shouldn't be shunned upon. But diversification, of your economic portfolio is not is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
To be looking at that, and it also is not something that can be conjured up overnight or in the matter of a couple of months when COVID first came on.
Yeah.
It is something that you need to start planning on now, and it'll take years to build up other industries. But it was very eye-opening for many
Yeah.
many in
Yeah. I
Hawaii.
remember talking to you a couple of times. Like, man, I don't know because you were on the cusp of. I think you either were on the losing your job or just hanging on by a thread, and then slowly got back into that realm, and then you changed roles and then you took
Mhm.
over another function in Hawaii. What was that?
Right, right. So I worked at the Waikiki Business Improvement District. So I was asked to join on because of my hospitality background and in the tourism industry. I was asked to run this organization that operates in the public space. So very specific to Waikiki. It is in conjunction with the city and county of Honolulu. It This organization has crews out there in support of the city. So meaning that like a city public trash can that's on the sidewalk, the city of Honolulu may come through and pull that trash once a day. But then this organization and our own crews go through and multiple times a day, because you can imagine if you've been to Waikiki before or anywhere else that's
Yeah.
a major tourism industry, a
Mm-hmm.
trash can is going to be way overflowing within a couple of hours, probably.
SeaWorld. SeaWorld trash can.
Right. And you need a constant attention turnover, because if you get an overflow trash can, what does that do? That is horrific for a visual for anybody seeing it. That means that they will question, well, if they can't take care of their trash, what else are they not taking care of?
Right. Yeah.
The overflow physically itself, it might blow away.
Yeah.
In this case, it could go into the ocean or go into the curb line that would go go into the ocean. It could just
Pests,
result in a
birds.
spill.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the pests that would come around because of spilled soda or food or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a one little trash can can really create that whole chain of events. So that's why this organization exists, to really supplement the city of Honolulu and being able to do things that the city municipality isn't able to do
Mm.
resource wise because of staffing and because of budgets. So the businesses of Waikiki were able to say we would be willing to pay into a special fund in order to fund the Waikiki Business Improvement District, and to be able to do these types of things that are above and beyond what the city could not keep up with. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is everything you're talking about, and we've been talking about in the last 30 minutes or so is all the stuff that happens behind the scenes. That so
Right.
you're not impacting zero gas, Hawaii gas, whatever gas you're talking about.
Yep.
One of our viewers
Because
just now said
sorry, go
she
ahead.
was I was fortunate to visit Hawaii every year annually from 2005 to
Hmm.
2019. COVID
Hmm.
happened, and then my planning. So she mentions Maui. Ellen and
Yeah.
I honeymooned in Maui. We honeymooned in Lahaina, and we stayed right there. Where we honeymooned does not exist anymore. It was burned
I know.
completely to
So
the
sad.
ground. I mean,
So
we
very
can't even go
sad.
back and visit. But it's also brought out the sense of community. You watch Hawaii because they're isolated. You can't fly like if you had a fire in L.A. or San Diego, you get fire exits from out of state, and they're there within a couple hours. Hawaii,
Mhm.
um, it was
Yeah.
so sad. So, but you've
Yeah.
seen so many things about the sense of community, and yeah, we're a tourist destination, but we're Hawaiians, and
Mhm.
it's still all about us.
Mhm.
It was tear jerking and
Yeah.
emotional and inspirational all at the same time.
Right. From that
Hawaii is just
devastation.
yeah, Hawaii is a special place, not because it's a tourist place. Hawaii is special because it's special.
It
It's
is. It is
yeah,
culturally and just
yeah,
its significance to the United States in history and its geographic location. I mean, you jokingly talked about like a commute or distance to things and one roads, one way roads and freeways.
yeah.
So the
Mm,
military presence there, every aspect, every division of the military is present on at
mhm,
least one or more of the islands, purposely so
yeah,
because of its strategic geographic location.
correct.
But that also means that, like, take the island of Oahu, that Waikiki and Honolulu, the majority of the city of Honolulu is on. It is it's bifurcated in many ways, not just due to mountains and volcanoes or former volcanoes, but also
That's
because
a new word for
of
me.
the
What's bifurcated?
it's like split.
Okay.
So meaning that and the bases. So military
Mm.
bases are
Camp Smith, Camp Smith's right there in the middle of it all.
Yeah, Schofield,
Mm.
Pearl
Yeah,
Harbor. So all of those have their given locations, and it's not like you're going to be able to put a major freeway, all the way through. And
correct.
so that's why there's limited freeways and major arterial roads that go through Hawaii. So commutes end up being a lot longer. I was 25 miles door to door, but it
An
would take me
hour.
90 minutes one way.
Gosh. Yeah.
So it was it was surprising.
We
I
she would
didn't even
call
think about
me.
that.
She would call me.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, I got an hour to kill. What do you want to talk about?
Yep.
All the time. It was awesome. So before we get into your new, because I want you to brag like crazy about Oklahoma City, I
Sure.
do want to bring up your husband Brian. Nice
Of
guy,
course.
love that guy, and
Oh,
your
thanks.
son. But one of the funniest stories I've ever heard in my life was when we all have our wedding stories, right? We all how we propose and all these things. Should I ask the question or should I just let you tell it? How did you get married to Brian? How did you get married? First of all, how'd you meet Brian? Like, I know the story. How'd you meet Brian?
So we met while I was working at SeaWorld at San Diego.
Yep.
He was working for a small construction firm there
Yep.
that had a number of different jobs. And at the time, I was kind of between being in water quality and
Yeah.
design and construction. I was finishing up some design and construction projects, and so the reason that Brian and I specifically met was because I was newer to the SeaWorld family and the design and engineering crew in particular. I was considered what they called an unknown commodity on the contractor side. They didn't exactly know, how tough I would be or how
Yes.
lenient and things like that, how I would run projects as a client. And so they saw that Brian and I were more of similar age, and they said that Brian was supposed to be the handler uh, and deal with me
Yeah.
to try to figure out, what did I prefer, email versus phone calls? Did I just how did I work and communicate? So Brian got put on a lot of the jobs that I was working on for that reason, to be the facilitator and the project manager, the communicator type of thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we just built up the friendship from there. And then after projects were finished, my projects related to his company's work were finished at SeaWorld, then we decided to foray into dating and see what that was like. So,
So I know that story because I went to the ceremony back on the mainland. But
mhm.
you have to tell our viewers because this is classic. I've never
Sure.
heard this before. How'd you get married?
We were married in well, in Hawaii. It was with the justice of the peace, a judge. We decided that it almost seems akin to our other conversation, a huge life-changing conversation of the drive, as I was telling you, going from Southern California, Northern California. Let's just go to Hawaii. Let's live in Hawaii. That seems
Right.
like that would be a lot more deep and long contemplation. Here we decided that, oh well, let's get married. And so we got the license and all the particulars, and went to the judge that's in downtown Honolulu. Decided, and then we are like, well, when would we want to do it? Oh well, lunch on a Thursday. I had it open on my calendar. I live and focus on my work calendar. I'm like, I don't have anything on lunch on Thursday, so Thursday's probably a good time. So he
When you told me years ago, I go, no, you didn't. She got married on lunch break and then went back to
then I
work.
went back to work.
What? I'm like, what are you doing?
But you make it sound really totally awful. Like, and we had lunch together. So, and then we celebrated that evening. We actually
Yes, I
had
know, I
dinner and
know.
things. But yes, it was on a lunch break, and I think it
So funny.
was definitely
Nobody,
special.
nobody I know can ever say that happened. Like, let's just drive on down. I don't want to drive home. You meet me here. We'll go down. Boom, boom, boom. I got a meeting in 30 minutes. I got to get back.
Well, I researched into it because I think that they
Oh
offered
my
the
god.
judge on Saturdays and things like that too. But we're like,
Yeah.
it costs more. And so we're like, oh, let's just save a couple bucks and do it during the week. My schedule happened to be flexible. So that wasn't that wasn't the most
Flex,
important part. The most important part was
flexible,
that it was official and
flexible enough
legal.
to pencil you in for lunch, honey. Now, I will say they came home to California. I met your parents, and it was
Hmm.
very nice. We had a big, what was it? It was at a park up in North County somewhere. I can't remember the name of the park. It was a
Oh, huh? Yeah. I don't
it was on
remember.
a golf resort, right? It was a golf place, right? No, it was a winery.
The reception thing was at actually a home in Temecula that we
That's
had
right. Nice
rented.
place. It was beautiful. Um,
It had a whole
and I
side
remember
yard. Yeah.
I remember you telling this story, and it catches because the romantic side is you were dating, and one of your and the moment that you knew that you I'll never forget the moment you knew was
Yeah.
they had
Well,
stayed over in a hotel somewhere, and he put toothpaste on the toothbrush and left it sitting there for her.
it wasn't even a hotel or a special trip. It was just regular workday.
Hmm.
And I think he had done it, so many other times before, but this is when he was getting up before me, so he did whatever for himself to get ready. But then I noticed that I don't know, something in that morning made me really notice that the toothbrush was there and that it was ready to go for me. And just to think that he had taken that extra step, because everybody
Yeah.
kind of rushes around any given morning to try to, or your mind is on other things, going to work and school or whatever. And that he took the time, even as small as that is, right? It doesn't. I'm sure it doesn't. He had the toothpaste. I'm assuming he brushed his teeth that day too, so he would have had the toothpaste open already. But that he just thought to put it on mine as well and to leave it there for me. So it wasn't like the grandest gesture by any means. It was probably the
But
smallest gesture,
it
but
proves it's all the little things in a relationship that add up to the heart moment or the
that
you know
make it
what
really beautiful.
Ellen and I do a lot of little things that when she's gone and I'm the one making the bed I don't always turn it down for her, but there's this there I'm a big teddy bear, right? So there's this pillow on our bed that she gave me, oh my god, 15 years ago as some Valentine present thing, and it's a big heart shaped pillow. It says love you. So when I turned on her bed, I
Mhm.
put that pillow right on her pillow, and she'll text me, thank you so much. It's just the little things that let you know that you're thinking about your partner. That
Right.
makes a big difference in the world. Renee asked the question, did they have a drive-through window at the Justice of Peace when you got married?
Was
Um,
there a what window? Oh,
was there a
drive through.
drive
No,
drive-through?
no, there was not. There was not. It was just
Yeah.
this little room with a cheesy, like arched trellis that had plastic vines going through it. So
Very
that's my
Vegas,
wedding picture.
that's very Vegas, by the way.
Isn't it? Well, it wasn't sparkly and glittery or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the questions are coming out. Where is Jennifer living now? So I'm going to let you go because she's got a lot to tell. She now goes from Hawaii to the Midwest, and
Go figure.
and they say she said the question, why would you leave paradise? And
Hmm.
she even titled it, "Why Oklahoma City?"
Hmm. Right. So Brian and I were in Hawaii, and we had settled, bought a house, had our dog there
Hmm.
as well, and it was great for Brian and I. And we always said that this would be the perfect retirement. And why not? Why? Who would not want to live and then ultimately retire in Hawaii? But then we had started a journey, several years into that, to start a family, and we were not so blessed and fortunate with that. There was a lot of ups and downs with that, a
Yeah.
lot of medications and surgeries on both my side and Brian's side. And then we were finally blessed with a pregnancy and a healthy birth of our son 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And many of your listeners that may be parents, this is old news to them. And I had been told it all my life that the it proverbial life changes and your perspective changes when you are a parent. And it was so very true. And for us, in the sense of, we loved Hawaii. Even Sebastian loves Hawaii.
Yeah.
uh, Still, and it will always be our home. But we wanted to make another home for a broadening of a sense of life. So, like we've joked about it already, quality of life when you think about a commute. So, I was on the road for 3+ hours every day.
A
That meant
day,
I
a
was
day.
that meant I was away from not just Brian, but now Sebastian. And not it sounds kind of bad when you think about it, like, oh well, Brian didn't count enough. But then Sebastian, definitely, being not just a wife, but being a mom and thinking about what did that mean as the family unit. And then it was more than just about commute and time on the clock. It was about things that sometimes you don't think in the paradise sense of Hawaii, that there's a lack of certain things like live performances, like a plethora of museums, like
Mm, mm,
a lot of aspects that we, as Brian and I growing up in Southern California, that we almost took for granted, or not almost, we did take for granted while
yeah.
living in California. And then it became more apparent when we were in Hawaii. And not to fault Hawaii, because you think about the model that we have been glowing about with the tourism industry. So a tourist is not going to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars to go to Hawaii, then to sit and go to concert, or to go necessarily to a museum that is not
Yeah.
culturally significant to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of things there that we felt were absent, or that we had to get on a plane and quite literally traverse the ocean to come back to the continental US, the
Yeah.
mainland, in order to experience, theme parks and things like that. And so thinking about from a child perspective, our son would never know the difference if we stayed in Hawaii forever, right? Because that life
Mm,
is what life is and it becomes.
yeah.
But for Brian and I now as new parents, we really thought that it would be not just that it would affect him as he was growing up and as in childhood, but perhaps just how would that possibly morph into his adult life? Were we doing the
Yeah.
right thing in
Yeah.
us wanting to be in Hawaii forever in retirement? Were we doing the right thing, by our son? So we took a hard look at looking at where we would want to go back to the mainland, and an opportunity came up in Oklahoma City. So the questions about that, I am in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma City, and that it was purposeful in two ways. One, there was a job opportunity that I was asked to pursue, and that was it's in the same realm that I was talking about earlier with the Waikiki Business Improvement District.
Yeah.
So one of the entities in downtown Oklahoma City partnership is a business improvement district. So we have a bunch of districts that
If I may,
are.
if I may,
Yeah,
before you get going on that, I
oh
remember when you called me from Hawaii, and you and I would very good at venting to each other because you're a great sounding board for me, and I seem to be a great sounding board for you. And I would always tell you when things are getting stuff, and I didn't say take some time to smell the roses. I would always say take some time to smell the what? Smell the macadamias.
oh, the macadamia nuts. I was going to say plumeria, but no, yeah, the
No,
macadamia nuts.
tell
Yeah,
take some time, and I would always tell her,
that's right.
Jen, smell the macadamias, man. And you're over there, turn work off. And I've gotten very good at that over my last 15 or so years of work. And because I've got two boys and Ellen, and we're both professionals and doing a
Hmm.
thing. But I got very good at turning it off. And I'm on call 24. I've been on call for over 20 years, 24 hours a day. I got many calls, but I go,
Yep.
when I'm not on the phone, or I'm not talking to an employer, or I'm not at work, I'm very good at turning work off,
Hmm.
and I respond to the moment. But I would always, because you on those drives, you'd still be thinking about the day, and I'm like,
Right,
Jen,
right.
look out the window, man, smell the macadamias.
Yeah, and
So
you forget. You forget.
I'm not
I,
saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong to be business oriented all the time. I'm just saying take that moment, and that's a message from your Uncle Bubba. Turn it off once in a while and just enjoy the scenery, or enjoy the drive, or turn your favorite song and just turn the world off, and just enjoy the moment for a couple seconds, and then
right. No matter where you
um,
live.
yeah,
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 yeah. It's definitely a good thing to remember. It's hard to remember though. As
yeah,
humans, we just I think get embedded in the day to day, and as hard as it is probably to believe, I would forget that I could literally see the ocean as I would drive to work.
Yeah,
You
but
know.
it's hard. You also, I have 58 employees who work for me that I have to think about each individual and and I know them. I know their families. I know what's going on. Whose kid's sick? Who's got all the other
Mhm,
thing. I know you're very good at that. You know your staff.
mhm.
Um, and I remember you would push me professionally, sternly, friendly, this and that. Because she may be 4'11", but she
Extremely
don't play.
friendly.
No, no, she may
True.
be 4'11", and she may be this beautiful, bright, smiling face right now. But when the poop hits the fan, Jennifer does not play. She's a boss, and she's very good at it. But she
There's
she
a time and
she
place.
absolutely, and that's a good lesson to have. You need to take care of your people, but you also need to take care of your people. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And there's two different ways to say that. So
right.
okay, sorry to
I
cut you
agree.
off, but I want to make sure
No,
that
that's good.
the messages of smell the macadamias, smell the roses, wherever you're at, whatever the thing you need to smell, take some time to smell it. So okay, now you're
Hmm.
in OKC, and she gets the job, and something very unorthodox she did. She had her staff call former employees, and we did a giant Zoom call. You remember this?
Yeah, yeah.
She did something. Jennifer's not on the call. She says, "Hey, staff. I know I'm this new role in this OKC thing. I'm going to be the boss here, blah, 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 blah. You need to talk to my former employees and see what you're getting yourselves into." So she has staff from Hawaii on the call. I'm on the call. All of her staff sitting around this table, and we're on this giant Zoom call, and they say these guys are talking. They won't be ask them anything you want about me.
Yeah,
And she
I thought that
doesn't.
was most. I was actually out of the office. I wasn't even like
Yeah,
I
she was
could
not
hear
there.
through the walls or anything like that. I was.
Yeah,
I thought it was an excellent opportunity because I would have wanted that, as an employee, earlier in my career. And why start from square one? To reinvent the wheel or to relearn about a boss. There's a lot of anxiety that, of course, an individual like me has starting a new job, but there's a lot of anxiety for anybody that's reporting to a new boss and
correct.
having to
Because
deal with that.
because you're what at that time you're an outsider
Oh yeah.
coming in the
Mhm.
role as president and CEO, and their staff there. Not I don't even know if they were so pleasant on the call, but I don't know that were they up for the role, or they, and now they got this new girl. She Hawaii. What is Hawaii? She don't belong. Who
Right.
because people are people, right? So it was a fun hour. I don't. What I don't know is how is it reported back to you
Oh,
that
they,
meeting.
they they were thankful. Many of them thanked me, afterwards. And I think much like you're kind of alluding to, they were thankful not just for the content maybe and the conversation that transpired, which I still do not know
Mm,
any of the details to today, what transpired back then. But that's not what's important. I think it was just the gesture of, I leave myself vulnerable in that way. And I think that as a
true.
leader, that's very important because a lot of leaders lead in different ways, as we all know. And we've all experienced different kinds of management styles. And for me, I feel like my style is that to gain trust and respect, you have to give it as well.
Yeah.
And in trusting that the new staff or the staff that was there at OKC that was going to be new to me, that I owed it to them professionally out of respect too, for them to get to know me. I don't think I told you this, Bubba, but in addition to meeting on Zoom with you guys, for the first 6 months I led each staff meeting where we had a fishbowl, and it was anonymous, that anybody at any time could drop a little card in, with any kind of question. And I said it could be a, something in my professional career, it could be a personal life question, anything that they wanted to know. Again, it would be anonymous, and I would answer at the start of every staff meeting because I just didn't feel like it's just there's so much stigma, especially when a new leader comes on board, of how is that going to affect me, how is that going to affect me, definitely in the office, but also personally, because we know that whatever happens during our workday, it also translates, whether we like it or not, consciously or subconsciously, into our personal lives as well. So
Yeah.
I wanted another, mechanism to show them that we can build trust together, and that yes, even though I am 4'11", I'm not so scary. And I hoped that they would be able to see that and learn that through these exercises. So uh,
I honestly believe, and I can say this, and I've said it many times, you're very good at keeping the balance of boss, mentor, fun, leaders, all those in between, from leadership down to just being one of the line guys. I mean,
thank
what
you.
I think, and you told me I'm very good at this too, is because we have days, most days are normal, things work, systems work, this and that. But when things don't go right, I'm always the first one to jump in a hole to put a clamp on a pipe, or I don't mind messing up my clothes. And I volunteer to cover shifts, even as the boss today. And I
Mm,
have 58 people who work for me. I'm still the one. I'll cover that shift at midnight. You guys stay home. I'll take care of it. Because
that's
it
important.
promotes, but it promotes volunteerism unconsciously. Or yeah, well, we
And
can't let my
it's
we can't.
setting an
Yeah,
example, and I think it's
yeah,
setting as an example, not just as a boss or as a manager or a leader. It's
yeah,
just setting an example of who you are as a person.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Yeah, you've always been that way. I think I've always been that way. That's why we think a lot alike. But you're also as fun as heck to be around too. So,
Oh,
um,
thanks, thanks.
yeah, we always tell. It's always fun telling stories. You and I love to laugh together. So you always have a good time. So
Mhm.
she's so fun. When she got in the water, probably too. There was a show on the TV at the time called Minute to Win It.
Yeah.
Look, she already knows. I worked at the time. I worked with a shop with a bunch of grumpy old guys, right? You know this, right? The Terrences and the Cliffs and all these guys and the Mark McCarthy's, right? And so she brought in the Oreo on the forehead game and the rubber band on the forehead, and so here she is. They didn't have to do it, but here you are. You got
Making me
12
cry.
to
Yeah.
15, 12 to 15 grumpy old guys doing those silly little games, and they all did it. It was the great icebreaker. I mean, one of our grumpiest guys did the Oreo on the Ford, and he's trying to drive it down his face. Hilarious that they all just kind of bought it, and then the sense of camaraderie, even if it was just for that hour lunch or whatever it was, we were all just a bunch of guys having fun with our boss. And then okay, lunch is over, you have a good time, let's get back to work. And then
Yeah.
the rest of the day was, and it just blends the rest of that day, that week, that month, that year. Yeah, she's pretty cool. But
Just
don't
little
mess around.
things.
She's still gonna write your ass up if you do something stupid. So you know,
There you go.
and that's because I still have those moments. So I love my guys, and I had a long talk
Mhm,
with them today because there's a whole Teamsters thing going on now at SeaWorld and blah blah
mhm,
blah blah blah, the unions,
mhm.
and it's so formed because there's not one part of the SeaWorld uh, work process in any of our parks, in the 12 parks we have, that's union based. So it's a new experience. I've never been involved. I have no idea all the back, but there's a lot of oh my god, there's a lot of logistics just involved just to get
Yeah,
into the boat, let alone being a union. So I'm learning a
yeah.
lot right now. But your
But
ability
you're right.
to your ability to ice break, having your staff talk to me with you not in the room from a
Mhm.
thousand miles away, cool, because they get you know I I think they thought had it. I was laughing the whole time, but I'm also saying the same thing I'm saying now is you drove me. She's going to ask you to be better than you think you are. She's going to ask you to push yourself in professional rank. But at the same time, don't forget about your family. And I said that then. I say it now is um, my old boss. Very well, Gerald Core.
Mhm.
I was a young supervisor back in the day, and I'll never forget this moment. And I'm trying to do that. And I had a guy mess it up, and I'm like, yeah. And he put his arm on my shoulder, and I said, "You're doing a great job, but just remember this: there's nothing more important at work that's more important than your family and friends." And from that moment
Sounds like
on,
Gerald.
just this weight of trying to be this go-getter supervisor, yada yada yada, just falls off. And I just, I'm still one of the guys, and I led like one of the guys. I lead. I coached high school basketball for 15 years. I mentioned many times. I lead as a team. It's all about. It's not about me. It's about us.
Mhm.
You know, and us. It's one of the biggest two-letter words in the world. It's us. It's all about us, guys. We have a product to do every day, and let's us do it together. All the problems seem to kind of go away when you lead like that. So you helped
It's a
inspire that too.
majority of it for sure, and I think that that's what you and I have definitely learned over the years too, both
Yeah.
together and now separate in our professional lives, is that it's balance though. As you do, if you make the career choice to move up that proverbial ladder in responsibility and job title and things like that,
Hmm.
it is a balance of being human with being a leader. And so then I think you touched on it earlier. There's a lot about being human, like we're talking about with these different stories and things, but there's also the tough times where you need
Yeah.
to know when that moment is that you need to step in, and whether it's taking responsibility for an error that has been made, that still sits on me as the ultimate leader. It may have started or been developed through the staff, but ultimately the buck stops,
Yeah.
type of phrasing,
Yeah.
right? And that
Yeah.
there is that balance. And it doesn't mean that it's a 50-50 balance either. I think it's important to recognize throughout leadership, or at least what I've tried to always put in my mind, is that it ebbs and flows. There are going to be days when it's an 80-20 on being the human side, because you want to be just one and the same with everybody. There's no
Yeah.
titles in the room, type of thing. But then there's others that it's going to flip the other 20-80 type of thing. And you're going to need to put,
Yeah.
and not to be sexist, but my big boy pants on. And it is, part of what goes along with the job as you go up in leadership. It's a hard thing sometimes to do for that separation, but it's figuring out where the balance is between the two.
Yeah. So now we're going to take the last few minutes here. I want you to brag like crazy about Oklahoma City because
Mm,
I've never been. We've passed through.
yeah.
Um, I know about you're in the Thunder, the Oklahoma City Thunder. You're connected to those guys. 'Cause
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
A
love
lot
it.
of our viewers are casino players. I know we're gonna go. We're coming to Dallas. I'm retiring on 23rd. I'm driving to Dallas
Yeah.
the next day, and then the WinStar is literally like an hour and change away.
Yeah.
And we're gonna come try to visit you, but
I know.
calendars
We'll see if we
our
can
calendars
connect the
our
calendar.
calendars are conflicting right now. But what's going on in Oklahoma City?
Oklahoma City is so great, and that's not just because I am a spokesperson for it. It really is a interesting in a really great place, interesting to live. There is so much that goes into, I think, being a kind of a perception of a small city, a small town,
Mm,
because there's a real authentic feel to the people here. That's something we noticed right off the bat when we were not even when we moved here. Before that, when we came out for interviews, they brought my husband and my son out with me too, and we just experienced what it was like to be a resident here for a couple days as well. And the authentic, deep nature of people to want something greater for their community than, just themselves. It's dying off, sadly, in the United
mm,
States. It seems like more and more walls are being built up, literal and figurative,
yeah.
and opinions that definitely are divisive. And I'm not just talking politics. I'm just talking, as humans. It just seems like we are going as a society away from each other more so than coming together. And here in Oklahoma City, there is a very real component to the people here. In addition, there's just a plethora of things. I mean, you mentioned, yeah, NBA. We have the Thunder here. We have a minor league baseball team. So there's the Oklahoma City Dodgers, so the affiliate team to the LA Dodgers.
Mm,
Um, there is a canal that was that is in the middle of downtown, that's big enough for a water taxi service that does tours
wow.
along the canal. And there's businesses on the other side of the canal. You may have seen that this happen in Riverwalk and other places and in other
San
cities.
Antonio. Yeah.
Yeah, San Antonio, and it's much like that, but it's not where Oklahoma City doesn't have the glitzy notoriety of that. We have a district named Bricktown here, which is our entertainment and tourism focused district that has it has the Opry, the Oklahoma Opry there. It has the American Banjo Museum. It has a lot of other theaters for both live performance plays and regular traditional movie theaters and things. And then this canal that runs in the middle. It's so fantastic. And then the beautiful thing about Oklahoma City and civic leadership here is several decades ago, 30 years to be exact, they started passing a initiative called MAPS, Metropolitan Area Projects, and this is in a 1 cent sales penny, literal penny, that gets put onto sales tax to pay for infrastructure projects here. So this pays for things like the Paycom Arena where the Thunder play right now. It was paid for through the MAPS projects. And this is where I think it's a beautiful thing when you take that step back and think about this concept. The community, Oklahoma City, is paying. All of us are paying for these beautification type of projects, or like for the Thunder Arena, or for the minor league baseball park that I spoke of earlier. The canal
Yeah.
was also a project. So all of these things that enhance our lives as a resident are actually paid for with the our own money, and that means that we are paying upfront for it, so there's no debt service. And not to get into the weeds about the
That's
details,
big.
but that's huge for a city,
Yeah.
that this is not an overcommitment, or where a city goes into debt or has to re apply for loans and bonds and everything like that. This is when the monies are collected and they are spent. And as a community, as a resident, we see the benefit directly firsthand for that.
There's
So
an example too is that you know this very well. Hence, San Diego, the city of San Diego filed for bankruptcy
I know,
10 years
sad.
ago because of the exact opposite of what you're saying,
Right,
right?
right. You
And
borrow
and
and you
then there's
borrow and over borrow. And so
right.
and it's not just like those types of projects. It's also homelessness programs. It's also community wellness centers, senior centers. The concept of the MAPS project, just it's so beautiful in that it is not about what is literally happening outside your door. It is about your neighbor and your neighbor's neighbor, and benefiting everything as a whole true
Mm,
community. It's not just passing something solely for something that you may never go to a Thunder game, for instance, or you may not
yeah.
ever go to visit the canal, but you know that in some way, shape, or form, maybe again, it's that your auntie or uncle, works for the water taxi and is a tour guide type of thing, or maybe they are a server in Bricktown, and that they would
Mm,
benefit because somebody's coming to Bricktown to traverse the canal, and then they're going to go to the restaurant afterwards, and and tip the server. It's so wonderful. And then Oklahoma City has not just Bricktown as a district. We have several others that really have neat characters. So we have Midtown Automobile Alley, which is a historic district where automobiles, truly dealerships were, and repair shops have been over history. West Village, City Center, and Deep Deuce.
you
So
sound like
all
such a local now.
six.
You sound like such a local now.
So all six of these districts that have their own unique personality and
Yeah.
history all roll up into overall downtown Oklahoma City partnership that I
Wow.
am employed by. So it's a really neat organization. We work with the city of Oklahoma City as well as private landowners throughout the city to just better better the public space and better just this whole quality of life that we all are going to live, whether you are working in downtown or living in downtown or
Yeah.
just being a tourist in downtown. Making it all part of that whole better life, I think, is
Yeah.
the great thing.
So questions in the chat was you had a 90-minute commute one way in Hawaii. How long is your commute now?
30 minutes.
3 minutes.
30. Yeah, so I've
Oh,
reduced
30.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, 30. So I've reduced it by a
By
third.
an hour.
Yeah,
Wow.
which
Second
doesn't
second
seem.
question. Yeah, that's how quality of life just improved by an hour a day,
Hmm.
2 hours a day.
Hmm.
Second question, and it come up multiple times in the last couple minutes. The weather and
Yeah.
specifically
Oh,
tornado
tornadoes.
season.
Yeah. So we can talk definitely about that. We have had tornadoes, definitely even since the year that we have been here. But and depending on preference, of course, your choice, your roulette of natural disasters. I mean, you got to consider. My husband and I grew up in, again, Southern California.
Yeah,
I
earthquake.
I grew up in earthquakes, and they, so predominant. I was around for the Northridge earthquake
That
in
was
the
bad.
'80s, so devastating. And so you go from earthquakes and wildfires. I remember, I forgot what year that was, Bubba, but when San Diego, we went through that
Yeah.
huge, just decimating wildfire there.
If I may, that one which was called the Canyon Creek Fire, that burned almost the entire area of Sabre Springs down.
Mm,
No, Scripps Ranch. I'm sorry, Scripps
Strip
Ranch
Ranch,
down
yeah.
was started by a guy who got lost in the woods and started a fire so he can get found and
Mm,
burned that entire neighborhood down.
oh,
And he went sent to jail and he had to rest. I mean, he couldn't possibly pay it back, but that guy went to jail for a long, long time because he was stupid, But it was during, in Southern California, we have it's called fire season because
mhm,
it's very dry out here most of the time. Now you wouldn't prove it by last week when it flooded like crazy.
mhm.
With my son Cameron walking in the door, Cam.
Thank you, friend.
Um,
Yeah,
and then
but yeah.
earthquakes. So they always talk about the earthquakes here because they keep saying the big one's coming, but we have the little tremors, and we just had a 4.5 the other day. But
Mhm,
I think you were the same thing. I went to the training about earthquake preparedness, and they had the one lady says we're 30 years past due of the big one
mhm.
that they say will be so big it will flatten the LA basin, like
Yeah,
not just a couple buildings, it will flatten the LA basin.
that's what
So
they say. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, in Mother Nature, as you were saying, earlier, finds its way and is
Hmm.
very definitely the most powerful thing in this world. So then, whether Brian and I joke about it, or actually there's a lot of truth in it. Then we move to Hawaii, where we experienced hurricanes,
The tsunami.
tsunamis. Definitely, you have, even though it's on another island. I mean,
Yeah.
volcanoes, eruption, and things.
Yeah.
And then wildfires, like you mentioned earlier with Maui. So natural disasters aside, we just kind of felt like, well, if we want to categorize it that way, then tornadoes were not on our checklist yet, and so we just, now we can check that off. Uh,
Now, isn't it?
but
I heard recently that they're building a whole new theme park in Oklahoma. Is that
there is,
true?
yes, there is an outside of Oklahoma City. There is a theme park development that is underway in a separate city. Yes,
Mm.
yep.
They're
But
former Disney execs, correct?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
they have made another company together. Yes, but I want
Yeah.
to say that with tornadoes, I mean, they're like other natural disasters. I mean, there's always other protections you can put in place. So, like for instance,
Yeah.
in our home, there's in the middle of the garage, there in the floor, there is a shelter. So it's like
Mm.
it's a big steel door that you
Wow.
slide back, and then there's stairs that go down, and very, very Wizard of Oz in that way. But this is interior. But there's a lot
Wow.
of other homes that have it exterior. There's actually above ground shelters now that you can get into. So it's just about being prepared.
Yeah. Renee says that's her biggest fear. I don't know. I, is it not trying to live life with blinders on and just enjoy each day and roll with the punches kind of? I don't know. I've never experienced. I've only seen a tornado. We were driving from New Orleans to Florida, and one we
Mhm.
just drove right past one. I'm like, oh yeah, we saw a tornado, and the guy's like, "Welcome to the South." That's what happens down here. So,
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
I
I don't
don't
know.
advise to
So
be out in the middle of one, or to
yeah,
be one of those seekers that you see,
yeah.
yeah, doing the live
What's
feed and stuff.
yeah? What's the biggest difference between your Hawaii experience and your Oklahoma City experience? You've been there a year now, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. What's the biggest culture change you would say?
Well, definitely the absence of beaches. Uh, is for palm, palm trees everywhere, and beaches. But I think that the weather is definitely and not talking about
Yeah.
tornadoes specifically, but in Hawaii, another aspect that you we would want to live there for was the year-round warm weather. Uh,
Yeah.
and why?
Averaging 75 degrees every day, every day.
I know, right? It's even if it's raining, it's
Right.
pleasant to
Yeah.
be out. But then there, maybe this is again chalking it up to the little things. So to know that when you step outside, you inevitably sweat in an instant, almost any day of the year. It's fine when
Wow.
you're on vacation. right? Because maybe you're wearing a bathing suit most of the time, or you're just headed out to the beach or to something. But professionally, when you're going to a meeting, I know I had several times while I was working in Waikiki that my meeting might just be 2 blocks down, and it would make a lot more sense for me to walk it.
Yeah.
But I knew that as soon as I stepped outside, I would be drenched in sweat, and that's not very professional to show up in for a meeting when I'm all sweaty and everything. So then the silliness of having to get into an air conditioned
Thank you, Chris.
car just to go down, two uh, 2 blocks and things like that. So,
Mm.
anyways, weather. But maybe in a broader sense, the benefit of weather is, yes, it is cold. We actually went to like 0 degrees or 2 degrees. I think I texted you about that
Oh,
not too long ago
yeah, that's
in the
right.
cold spell. So it definitely is very starkly different than Hawaii. However, there are other things that you miss. So, like, there's no fireplaces in Hawaii homes, or at least
Hawaii.
in ours there were not.
Yeah.
And so we weren't able to experience a wood burning fireplace, for Christmas time, or for the holidays, making s'mores, things like that. Um, and then what really sealed it, I don't know if you've heard this story, you might have already, Bubba, about when we did come to do that interview that I was talking about,
Hmm.
with my husband and my son along,
Yeah.
that we had a little bit of extra time. So we were driving around in our rental car, and we're driving actually on a freeway. And Sebastian, who was 4 at the time, was looking out the window, and he started saying, he was like, orange, red, brown. And we're like, okay, that's, kids do odd things sometimes.
I remember you telling me this.
But then, what finally made sense and clicked in is that he was. This is November time frame. He was reciting the colors that he was seeing in the fall changing of the leaves, and that's something that he had
Does not happen in life.
never
Exactly.
experienced before.
Yeah.
Of course, he learned it, saw it on Sesame Street or in books and things like that, but he was experiencing it for the first time firsthand. And something just really clicked again, because my mindset, or both Brian and my mindset, was to expand his experience and his quality of life. It was like a little thing like that. Like, oh my gosh, if we, as we were in Hawaii, the beauty that it makes it green all the time is that it's green all the time.
Mm.
And not that that's a bad thing by
Right.
any means, but it was just like, it was so eye-opening that he was, a simple thing again. He was just talking about colors of leaves and what that really
You,
meant in the
knowing you,
grand
you
scheme.
probably shed a tear.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Knowing you,
for sure, for
that's
sure.
a cool
Yeah,
mom. That's a mommy moment. You got to take
I
advantage of that mommy
know.
moment.
That's a made for TV Hallmark moment. Yes.
Definitely very Hallmark. We're coming that way in May. What are you a foodie out there? Are you? And what's your spot? Do you have a spot?
Love the barbecue here. That's for sure. And so Hawaiian barbecue, for those I saw in the
Right.
thread that either have lived in Hawaii or visited Hawaii, the Hawaiian barbecue, that it's essentially teriyaki
Yeah.
and lunch plate and things like that. Here,
Yeah.
the barbecue in terms of Southern or Texan or Oklahoma Texan type of barbecue, it's great. I mean, you can go to a number of different places, and aside from if you're vegan or vegetarian, I mean, you get a plate of meat. So, I mean, and different variations of meat. It's just, and sausages and ribs and,
Oh man.
pulled pork and all different kinds of sauces. And it's just, it's really great. Definitely barbecue here is a big thing. And then the mix, though, I was surprised, because that would be stereotypical of Oklahoma or the Midwest, right? But I was actually surprised how there's a mix of other foodie opportunities. So Greek food and Indian and Japanese and Thai, and there's a heavy Asian influence here, which I never expected.
Mm.
before. So we have a lot of pho places and hot pot places, and it's just yeah, there's a blend that was pleasantly surprising from a
Yeah.
foodie perspective. And this is me coming from Southern California mindset too, where there's a plethora
Oh my
of
God, so much
things.
food here.
Yeah, yeah, and there's
They're all
great
saying now.
breakfast
Kathy says now I'm
places.
hungry.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, I can't wait.
love that. Yeah.
As we're gonna close, first of all, thanks for being here today.
Oh, of course, Bubba. Was
Yeah.
love
Uh,
doing this.
yeah.
Love
She
chatting with you.
let's promote what's your website that you guys that you feature
Downtown,
your just yeah.
yeah, downtownokc.com is the Downtown Oklahoma City Partnership. So if you're ever
Okay.
looking at visiting, and we have an events calendar there,
Yeah.
and also talk about our different projects. We do public art installations, and other special events and things. So you can always check that out, downtownokc.com, and look us up there. Or if you're curious about some of the districts and want to ever contemplate relocating here, we'd love to talk
Well,
to you too.
you know me and
Tornadoes
Ellen, we're gonna
aside.
go. You and Ellen and I are all and Brian, we're all gonna go to the Asian area and get some pho or some hot pot because hot pots are awesome.
I know,
Um,
fantastic.
any last words of wisdom before we sign off with this today?
I was just going to say to you, Bub, I mean, this is your opportunity to put me on the spot in a literal life setting. If there was anything you wanted to ask me, burning question that you have had over
Well,
the years.
I don't want to get emotional, but I've told you before. I think the world of you. You're one of my dearest friends, and you went
Likewise,
from
sir.
being. You're. I appreciate that. You went from being this as your Oklahoma City, this unknown
Hmm.
source that got put in my chain of command, and like I
Okay,
won't
so
say what you.
you can say that it was
No, no,
like,
no.
like what?
I won't say what you said in our first team meeting because you brought us all in, and not a version of introduce yourself. Um, but I felt more so than most on the leadership team that you wrapped your professional arms around me and were a huge mentor. And because the way I think about them, I've always felt that way. But looking at big picture, did I ever think I would be the number one guy? No. Did I ever think I'd be running this whole band by myself? No. Did you influence that? Absolutely. So now here I am, 4 months from my retirement. It was a perfect time to have you on and just let everybody know what you mean to me as a friend and a mentor and a person that I care deeply about.
Well, thank you,
Thank you
Bubba.
so much.
I knew you could do it. I knew you have always had that in you, and you needed to believe. You needed time to believe in yourself more
Yeah.
than anything else. And I'm glad that
Yeah.
you have gotten to that point.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, appreciate you being here. I want to say next week is Rob and Brenda from Minnesota. They're the keynote couple, and then on Super Bowl Sunday we'll be in Las Vegas live with Wayno and JoJo. Get your parental advisory stickers out because Wayno's a hoot, a little off color, which is always fun. And then the week after that is Lolo from the Upper LA area, Lolo Slots and her husband, and on the 18th, Super Squirrel from Tampa, Florida. And then after that, we have Najee Freeman. Um, she's a local baker who reached out to me and wants to promote her product. She does a mail order bakery business. We're gonna go live from her kitchen, and I've tested her product. It's amazing. So we're gonna do a live shoot from her kitchen and promote her dessert projects. It's cupcakes, pies, and cakes and stuff, all sweet potato based. It's so good. I can't wait to see you share it, guys. And then we've also hooked up. We've got a professional cornhole player, Tyler Parent. He's on a professional tour. Um, and he's going to talk about the professional cornholes at the ACL, American Cornhole League. So he's number 7th nationally, and he's like 14th in the world in cornhole. He makes a ton of money locally on the tournaments, but we're showing everything in this channel, so it's so fun. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. I love you to death.
You're welcome.
Thanks for sharing your life and your professional life and what you meant to me. And
Of
I hope
course.
some of me, I hope some of me has rubbed off on you as well.
Very much so. Yes, my
Yeah.
life would not be the same.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Have a great day. Love you, Jen. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon. Be safe, happy, and healthy. Okay. Have a great Sunday, and hope your playoff team wins today in football. Have a great day, everybody. Love you, Jen.
Bye.
Bye.